Welcome back, YouTube viewers. We're here with another episode of Double D's Card Talk. And if you remember our last episode, we were discussing investing versus collecting within the sports card market and whether it was even possible to try and do both, or just some of the struggles that went along with it if you were going to try to be an investor in sports cards. And so a lot of people had some opinions on the subject, and we reached out to a couple of YouTubers and asked them to give us some of their thoughts and contribute as a guest segment to this episode. One of those members you'll know as She Blinded Me with Refractors, Andy. He's had some great opinions as somebody that has done some prospecting of his own. So I'm going to turn it over to him to tell us some of his thoughts on the subject.
Hey guys, it's Andy, aka She Blinded Me with Refractors. Tonight I'm going to talk to you just briefly about sports card investing and more specifically prospecting. One of the things I wanted to talk a little bit about is don't buy the sizzle, buy the steak. Now, prospecting, it can be some of the pros of prospecting, I would say. It can be fun. It's always fun to play general manager. Who hasn't, at some point, if you're a sports fan, wanted to be a general manager, and who, doesn't think that you're a better evaluator of the players than, the scouts and owners, coaches, everybody else. So it's fun. It's exciting. And it's, we view it as a chance to strike it rich. Like, everybody wants to find the next Tom Brady, Mike Trout, LeBron James, Aaron Judge. But those guys, as some of us that have prospected before have learned, are few and far between. So some of the cons of prospecting, it's very risky. I kind of compare it to investing in penny stocks or playing slot machines. Those things can be a lot of fun, but they rarely ever work, and a lot of times you lose a lot of money. So if you're looking to invest in sports cards, especially long term, prospecting is very tricky. One of the things that I think that people need to look at if you're gonna prospect is, what are your realistic expectations for the player? Because I don't feel like that happens a lot with some of these modern players. One of the guys, for instance, look at Vlad Guerrero Jr. Some of his cards are selling, north of $10,000. So it kind of gets you to, it gets the wheel spinning a little bit. Like, what do I realistically expect from him as a player to warrant paying that price? I really don't even know what the answer is, because, to realistically not only hold that price, but for it to actually increase, what can he possibly do is the question. What is he? Is he going to be like, the next Barry Bonds, the next Babe Ruth? I don't know. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I've never invested in a player like that, and I don't think that I ever will, because the hype is just, it's just too far out there for me. So one of the things we're talking about when we say don't buy the sizzle, what the sizzle basically is the initial hype period for a player. So let's just say a new hot product comes out, like let's say Prism basketball or Contenders football, something like that, something, the new hot rookie. So let's say you're going after player X, and player X comes out at, in the first week of release, he's selling for $500, let's just say, for instance. And so a couple of weeks go by. Player X is still playing really good, just like he was when the product came out. And there's a dip in the price. Like the price, let's just say it went down to $350. And what's happened is that initial hype period has it's passed. People's attention span is very short these days. So what's happened is a lot of the collectors, they've moved on to the next hot product that's come out, or the next hot prospect. So he hasn't done anything. This player hasn't done anything to warrant really the card going down as far as his performance on the field, on the court. But that's what happens after that initial hype period is over. You can see like a small dip. So let's say he's at 350 now. So now what you're going to be doing if you've invested in this player and during that hype period is you're going to be basically chasing your tail. Now, what I mean by that is he's going to have to not only continue to perform as well as he was, but he's going to have to up his performance just so you can get a price spike, so you can get back to your initial investment. And that seems like an awful lot of work to break even. So now, if you want to actually make a profit on this player long term, I mean, he's gonna have to have like a Hall of Fame career. And if you've done a lot of prospecting, that's pretty rare. You see a lot more guys fail than you see go on to have Hall of Fame careers. That's for sure. So definitely be careful when you're prospecting. I'm not going to say not to do it, because I do think it's fun. And if you're just like dabbling in a player here or there, I mean, I say go for it. It's fun. It gives you more of a reason to watch some of the games. Sometimes these regular season games can kind of get a little boring, so it kind of gives you an incentive. You have like a stake in the player, which is fine, but just don't go overboard with it. And I definitely don't recommend investing long term, like in some of the super hyped prospects. Vlad Guerrero Jr. comes to mind. A couple of years ago, it was Byron Buxton, and if you invested pretty heavily in Byron Buxton during the hype period, I mean, you lost a lot of money. And he's 25 years old, but I really don't know what he could do from this point to getting back to the prices that he was at during that hype period. So it's to each their own, but that's really all I have on this topic. So just be careful out there if you're investing in prospects, and don't buy the sizzle, buy the steak.
What's up, everybody? Dustin A here. Thank you, Andy, for your contribution. You make a lot of great points. Really, the best way that you're going to hit on prospecting is to hit on one of those long shots, one of those under-the-radar guys, somebody toward the bottom of the top 100, maybe off the top 100, that just comes through and has a great career. I mean, nobody expected Tom Brady to be what he is today, probably the greatest quarterback of all time, let alone be like a mid-tier starter. So that's really your best bet when it comes to prospecting, is to just get lucky on a long shot, because the Vlad Guerrero Juniors of the world, they're already overvalued. No matter what I mean, he'd really have to do something crazy in order to keep up with that value. So, but anyways, we have another great YouTuber here to give his 2 cents, and that is my main man, Victor Negron.
Hey guys, here to chime in on this subject a bit, and I'm not here to tell anybody who enjoys prospecting that they should stop doing it or anything. Just gonna share some of my thoughts and opinions. And I've dabbled in it here and there. I'm sure even a lot of us would keep a few good young player rookie cards set aside just in case we can flip them at some point, but it's just not something I like to put a lot of time and money into. And I have a friend who really did get into the whole prospecting thing, and I've known him pretty much my whole life, and we were collecting together back in the day, and we used to trade all the time. He collected a lot like me. He just collected his favorite players and teams and just enjoyed the hobby overall. But I actually got him into baseball, which maybe makes me partially to blame for what ended up happening to him, which when he started to get into baseball and started to realize that some of these baseball prospect cards could go for decent money, especially when the players would get called up and have a good rookie season, he became kind of infatuated with the whole prospecting thing. Most of his collecting became just buying prospect cards and buying prospect heavy products, and just he turned into the whole science. Like he was like studying everyone's minor league system and all that, trying to predict who the next big guy was going to be. And he actually hit on a few of them. He made a little bit of a profit here and there, but for the most part he took a lot of losses. And I know this for a fact because I was usually the one selling the cards for him, and I just remember how disappointed he always was when I would tell him what some of his cards would sell for. And the problem was he was usually buying stuff high, which obviously is not a good thing for investing, but that's kind of what happens. You buy a lot of these prospect cards so high that they have very little room to grow. So that would happen to him. When he would try to flip some of the cards, he'd sometimes break even. He'd oftentimes take a loss because, as we all know, some of these prospects end up not being as good as they should be, or as good as people are saying they're going to be. So he just took loss after loss, and after a while I just saw it kind of take its toll on him to the point where he just completely lost his love for the hobby and doesn't collect anything anymore. I actually still have a box of some of his failed prospects right here. So if some of you guys want to take a look at these, just let me know and I'll make a video on my channel. So there's a little cross promotion for you. But yeah, again, not saying prospecting is a bad thing, but it can definitely have its negative effects, especially when you make it such a big part of what you're doing and you're kind of depending solely on that to make some money. It's just a very dangerous road to go down, and I just choose not to do it.
Good stuff there, Victor, and I'm sure myself and a lot of other tubers would like to see that box of failed prospects video and kind of take that trip down memory lane of some of the, you know, can't miss guys of the past that ended up missing. And man, that's an impactful story there, you know, with your friend, and I've seen that happen with other people too that really get caught up in where their card buying is driven by what can I turn into a profit rather than what will I take enjoyment from. And yeah, I definitely feel like it's a bad road to go down. Victor had a few more thoughts that he wanted to share, and so he asked if he could do an additional segment. We certainly weren't going to tell him no, so I'll let him finish up with the thoughts that he had.
Alright guys, if you're seeing me again, it's because Dustin and Dustin were nice enough to grant me some extra time on here. So I just want to talk a little bit more about buying prospects high, because you see that happening a lot now. So I want to use a guy like Vlad Guerrero Jr. as an example, because he's obviously one of the most expensive prospects out there right now. I was looking up some of his autographs, and his first year Bowman Chrome autograph, people are listing at like $800 and up. And some of his cheaper autographs are going for like $100 to $200. So just think about it. When you're paying that much money up front for a guy that hasn't even taken a major league swing, how good does he have to be to keep his cards at that price range? And not just keep it at that price range, because if the point is to make money and make a profit, then you need it to go above that price range. So if he comes out in his rookie year and hits 25 home runs, is that going to be good enough to keep his cards at that price range? I doubt it. That would normally be good just from a baseball standpoint, you say that was a good rookie season, but in the hobby, you're going to have to do way more to keep people's interest, to keep people paying those types of prices. He's going to have to hit like 40 to 50 home runs his rookie year and 40 to 50 home runs every year after that just to keep people interested in his cards and keep paying those types of crazy prices for his cards. And I just want to use his dad, Vlad Guerrero Jr, as an example, because he was also a very highly touted prospect. And I remember I was collecting around that time, and he was being talked about a lot. Had tons of articles in Beckett and being talked about on sports card shows. And he's a guy who actually lived up to the hype. Had a Hall of Fame career, was an MVP, Gold Glove winner. Very consistent, just great season after great season. And still, throughout his career, his cards weren't really worth much. And I know this because I collected them for a large portion of his career. So his first few years when he was being talked about a lot as a prospect, this card, his 95 Bowman's Best and his 95 Bowman, they were pretty big money cards back then. And it's hard to compare because obviously he didn't have a first year Bowman Chrome autograph to compare or anything like that, but those were still pretty hot cards. And again, once he was in the league 2-3 years, people just stopped caring. They moved on to the next group of prospects. I remember towards the late 90s, it was guys like Pat Burrell and Adam Dunn and Rick Ankiel, J.D. Drew, those types of guys. They all had hot cards. They came up, had a good first few years. And again, a few years later, people moved on to the next crop of prospects and so on and so on. I've seen this happen so many times. So you got to think about that. Even if a guy comes up and has a good career, even if a guy comes up and has a good Hall of Fame career, it still doesn't guarantee that his cards are going to stay at the ridiculous prices that they're at. So you got to consider that when you're paying these crazy prices for these current prospects, how good do they have to be in order for you to profit off of those cards?
Well, thanks a lot, Victor, for your thoughts. You're always very insightful. I think another thing that we should mention is when the Scott Rowlands and Nomar Garciaparras and Vlad Guerrero Seniors, when they came up, they were very highly touted prospects. So there was a ton of cards made for them. But one thing that is different than from today is the autographs. There wasn't a ton of autographs to be pulled out of packs back then. And now you can guarantee that this year maybe not as much, but in 2020, Vlad Guerrero Jr. is going to sign a ton of autographs, and he's going to sign for a ton of products, and it's just going to be like Aaron Judge and Ohtani, that the market is basically going to be saturated with their autograph cards, and that's going to devalue their cards a little bit. So that's another thing to think about when you're collecting these very, very expensive prospect and rookie autographs. So now I'm going to leave it to a man who needs absolutely no introduction. Here he is.
Morning, guys. Look, it's my honor to have been asked by the Double D's of YouTube to make a little segment for one of their periodic, discussions of the sport, the hobby, your sister's ass. And it's my pleasure to do so. Look, guys, I've been doing this a long, long time. Longer than some of you guys have been born. And, you got to go with the tide. You got to change your attitude and your perception of this hobby, because it's a whole different ball game now, guys. When I started, maybe, 30 years ago or more, had a massive vintage collection. Massive. Maybe not as good as some of you guys that collect vintage now, but I had all the main rookies, and grading wasn't even an option back then. They didn't have grading. But you know what? I don't think I would have been interested, because I relied on what I saw in my freaking hand when I bought the card. Whether it was a 10 or a 9.5 or a 9, it was pleasing to my eye, and that's all that mattered. Look, I had no idea back in the day that certain cards would go through the roof, certain sports and certain prospects and so forth, because if I did, that's all I would have been doing, was buying those single cards. But I enjoyed it, and I always knew that there was a value attached to something, because even though it's my passion and I love sports and all that kind of stuff, It's like anything else. You buy a diamond or a ruby or an emerald, and you know that you've bought an excellent example of such, and it's worth money, and it came from the earth, and it's got nowhere to go but up, presumably. It's like when you buy a brand new beautiful car and whatnot. Now, I know the minute you go out the dealer's door, it decreases in value, but you take good care of it, and you shine it, and you do the chrome, you make sure you do all the maintenance, and you give it a wash and a buff, you know, and it looks good when you're driving down the road in it, you know, because everybody's looking at it, and I had cars like that, guys. And, you know, when you buy a house, you know, you want to make sure that you do the gardens and smell the flowers and all that kind of stuff and make it look presentable and look your biggest investment you probably do in your life. So you always want to make, you know, make it the best as possible it can be. Well, it's the same thing with cards. You like to know that they're worth a little money and value, and that's the key. But anyway, guys, I got out of vintage because after X amount of years, I started looking and they were getting boring to me. They weren't talking to me, you know. They weren't popping. And I enjoyed them while I had them, but then I got rid of all of them, guys. I made money. Probably would have made more if I graded them and had them today, but that's okay. Got more money than I need. I don't know what to do with it. So the bottom line is I started venturing into the modern sports market. And, you know, I don't know if it was in the 90s that it really took off when you started having relic cards and autographs and stuff like that, and low-numbered cards. And if you had those cards now, they're even worth a hell of a lot more because people just didn't understand. But now there's oversaturation, and you get relics in packs that you can't even get a buck for, so help me God, okay? And you get repetition and same guys over and over again. You know, you always look for the low numbering, but low numbering is bullshit because it's done by the manufacturer to add some interest. But remember back in the day, in baseball, let's say you had the Elite Series, they were numbered to 5,000, 1,000. You thought you had a rare card, and you probably did. But nowadays, you know, a card even numbered to 10, or even a 1-1, it ain't what it was, okay? Unless you get a guy, hot, rookie, exploding on the market, and you get low numbered, you get monstrous money. But you got to flip them quick, guys. And that's something I don't really do because it just shows that I am a collector number one. I've been selling cards for a long, long time, but I'm a dealer number two, a collector number one. I like having a collection that nobody else can have because what's the point if I have something that 100 million other people have? So I do like the low numbers. I do like the 1-on-1s. I do like the fancy patches, you know? And I don't flip my cards because if I did, I'd be selling all my Luka Doncics and cards along those lines, you know, your Juan Sotos, your Acunas, because after the year that they have their rookie card, there's always the next crop. Like in basketball, my passion, Zion Williamson, when he comes out next year out of Duke, and imagine if the Knicks get him because they got the worst record and he's going to be the number one pick, his cards are going to go through the roof. But they're going to forget a little bit about this year's crop, just like Jason Tatum and Donovan Mitchell. They were hot as shit last year, right? Cards going down. There's no reason. They're still performing, all right? So that's what I mean. You gotta, if you get a hot card, flip them now. Because you know what? You can always buy the same or a similar card again going forward at a cheaper price. Don't listen to what I don't do because I don't do that, okay? I like to have a beautiful collection, and once I pull a card, under certain circumstances, it'll stay with me for a long freaking time, okay? But again, guys, this is what the market is. eBay killed the freaking card collecting market because everybody and his brother is a dealer now. You look at the freaking sell prices on some of the cards that ended in an auction basis on eBay is a joke. I tell you, I know what I get for some of my cards on eBay. If I had known that I was going to get that price on eBay, I would have marked it half price, put it on my table to show, got more money and don't have to pay the fees. You understand? And when guys think they got gold and they put buy it now for some stupid-ass freaking numbers, right? The cards sit there for a long, long time and just keep on relisting, okay? Card shows, they're not as many as there used to be. There used to be 2 or 3 every weekend. I used to have to decide on which one I wanted to do. Now I got no choice. I got to do them when they come around. Most of them are small shit shows at the colleges and the VFW halls that I told you on Long Island. Nobody's got any money. They come and they bust my balls. They look through my dollar box. They're never going to whip out the big money and buy the big hitters that are sitting in my cases, right? And then I do the big shows like up at White Plains, you know. At least it's a big show in the tri-state area, and guys come in there and they want something for nothing. But there's a lot of competition, a lot of tables, all right? I haven't done the national yet. I will when I retire, which is coming up soon. When I have the time to do so, then I might travel to the Houston show, the Chantilly show, the national, the Boston show, the Philly show. I may just do that because I want to see new faces, guys maybe that have a little money in their frickin' pockets. So the Dustins, I hope I didn't overextend myself here. It's over 7 minutes. She asked for 3 or 4, but once I start with the oral coming out of the mouth, I just can't help it. All right, guys. Collect, like Big Morph says, collect what makes you freaking happy. And if you get a little cha-ching at the end, it's even better. All right, guys, ciao.
I don't know even how I begin to start trying to follow up Ricky Russo there, but I'm going to try. And I tell you, it's some excellent thoughts, some excellent advice right there. And you know, if I could capture a theme on that, it's don't be afraid to maybe lose out on getting the absolute top dollar. Just be happy to make money sometimes when you sell a card. And as for I think some of us, we know the right answer is it's getting close to time to sell. But there's so many times I think we get caught up in this idea, oh, if I hold it just a little longer, it's going to go up even more. And we miss our opportunities to maybe, you know, sell high, and we end up missing out and ended up sometimes even taking a loss when there was a profit to be had. So, man, just some absolute gems of wisdom there from the one and only Ricky Russo. I'm going to kick it back to my partner, Dustin Abraham, here for some final thoughts on the episode.
Well, thanks, B-Side, and thanks to all of our contributors today. Andy, this channel, She Blinded Me with Refractors. Victor from Victor Negron Cards, and of course Ricky Russo. We'll leave a link to all of those channels below just in case you aren't subscribed. But make sure you're always subscribed to Dustin and Blake and Dustin Bellinger for your chance to see all of these. And I put them on a playlist, and I'll leave the link to the playlist below so you can see all the back episodes too. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Double D Card Talks.